Hello, hello. We'll get some people in here and then we'll answer some of your questions. So my name is Keith Kraker. I am a registered dietitian and I am one of the co-founders here at Carbon Diet Coach. And I'm here to answer your questions. We hop on these regularly to answer any questions you guys have about the app, about nutrition, about training, that type of thing. Anything that will help you ultimately on your path towards reaching your goals. So this is open season for anything you guys have for me. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, please put your questions in the comments, and then I can pull it up on the screen for everybody there. If you're on Instagram, there is a ask a question feature. If you ask through it that way, it's a lot easier for me to pull it up on the screen for others to see. So once we get a few questions here, we can get started. We're getting some people in here. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's excited for Thanksgiving next week. I'm sure there'll be some questions around how to track macros around Thanksgiving or how to estimate certain things. We can talk about that stuff. Anything that you have. You're confused about protein powders. What's confusing about protein powders? All right, looks like we got one on YouTube already, so I'll pull that up. Hello there. Can you give me a better idea where to tape measure for body fat percentage? I'm a male. Is it just above the navel, including the love handles? So typically it's like the widest point around your belly. So typically that is right around your belly button. That's going to give you the best measurement for estimating body fat. Don't use your pant size. I know a lot of people enter in like their pant size, but that's typically off from where the formulas are typically looking for you to measure. So measure around the largest point, typically right around your belly button, but you might need to move it up and down a little bit to get the exact right point. But just do the best you can and then pop that in one of those equations. Good question. All right. So what is the best way to up my protein intake? This is a good question. A lot of people do struggle with reaching their protein targets, especially when they're just getting started. It can be daunting to reach, a high target. Typically, Carbon recommends what's optimal for lean body mass on whatever goal you are on. So muscle mass, building muscle mass, maintaining muscle mass. So that's going to be a lot higher than your typical RDA recommendation for a sedentary person. So when people see the protein target recommendations, they often get scared about like, how am I going to reach that? And the best way to do it that I found is to break it up. So break things up, look at the total you have for the day, and then however many meals you eat per day, you just divide that total by those meals. And if you have snacks too, you can divide it by all of the times when you eat. And that'll give you a meal target that you should aim for. I find it a lot better having per meal targets for protein, just because it helps me stay on track with my protein throughout the day. So if I have any meal that's low in protein, I know I'm going to be behind. So I always am thinking about, okay, what am I going to base this meal around in terms of a protein source? I think about protein first when I'm trying to build out a meal to hit my macros, and then I put other foods around it and think about what the full meal can be in terms of what I want to eat. But yeah, I think breaking up protein for multiple meals and then having a protein target per meal helps a lot of people stay on track with their protein. Another thing is you want to probably introduce some protein powders, just an easy way to top off your protein and make sure that you are reaching your targets. And over time, you'll find that you rely less and less on protein powder because you'll be looking for what foods are high in protein. Like when I started trying to reach a higher protein intake, I thought I had to drink protein shakes all day long. But now, like literally, I barely have any protein powder every day. So you get to a point where you search for high protein foods and you include those in your diet, and it makes it so much easier. So just do the best you can, and then just adjust and keep trying to bump it up till you reach your recommendation. All right, let's see here. Okay. Okay, how does reverse diet work exactly? Because when I tried it, it seems that it works exactly as a massing phase. So it is similar, but there is an important distinction between those two goals. So in carbon, you can choose a weight gain goal, which is basically like a massing phase that you're referring to, or a reverse diet goal. And the main difference between those is if you choose the gain weight goal, the app is going to force you to gain a certain amount of weight every single week. So if you're not gaining the right amount of weight every single week on average, or your trend or whatever, it will make an adjustment. Whereas with the reverse diet goal, it is going to allow you to gain a certain amount of weight per week without holding your calories back. So it's kind of a different approach where we're trying to maximize your metabolism, and we're okay with a little weight gain, but weight gain is not the goal on our reverse diet setting. So it's more permissive in terms of like what happens with your weight, as long as it's within a certain range of what you deem acceptable when you create your reverse diet goal. Whereas, yeah, the weight gain is going to force you to gain a certain amount of weight each week. So it just depends on what you are looking to do. Like if you're coming out of a diet, you want to work in your metabolism suppressed and you want to work on building that up, then you may want to choose the reverse goal. But if you are like deep into, you haven't dieted in a while, your metabolism's fine, but you want to gain, some weight and force your body to gain a certain amount of weight each week and hopefully build more muscle that way, then you want to choose the weight gain goal. So it's an important distinction. It's just a little bit of difference in those goals. But if you guys have questions or anything around how to choose the right one for you and your circumstance, don't hesitate to reach out to our customer support. Super helpful in working through anything that you guys have to figure out what's the best goal for you. All right. So why can't I lose weight on low calories, but when I put calories higher, I start losing weight easier? It could be a couple different things. First that's jumping out to me is one thing that happens with a lot of people is if they try to be too restrictive, they end up not being as consistent with their diet because it's harder to stick to. So they might have a few more slip-ups here and there, and they're not really thinking about how many calories those slip-ups are contributing to their average intake throughout the week. And so if you are too restrictive, trying to lose too fast, your calories are going to be too low. You're probably going to have more slip-ups where you end up overeating. And if you look at the average of your intake, it's likely going to be higher. That could be one scenario. The second scenario could be you're tanking your metabolism. So you're trying to lose really, really fast, and then your body's adapting negatively by slowing your metabolism even more than it would if you were on more moderate weight loss. So that could be another thing to where you need to then eat even lower to create the same deficit that you would have when your calories are a little higher. So those are the two things that come to mind for me, but it's hard to know without really looking at all the details of what's going on. Good question. All right. Any tips for my wife who is consistently under her calories but still can't lose fat? She's been weight training as well. She might just need some more time. It sounds like she's doing the right thing with weight training and trying to build muscle. Like I would put a large a large focus on the gym for her. So make sure that she's progressively overloading her exercises to give her body stimulus for building muscle. But yeah, like losing fat, you do want to really push it in the gym and make sure that you're holding on to any muscle that you have and potentially building some more muscle. And if they're newer to weight training, they can build muscle and lose fat, at the same time. It's going to be easier for them, but as she gets more experience in the gym, it's going to be harder and harder to do that. But it sounds like she's more new to the gym. So just have her push hard in the gym, track her weights on her exercises, make sure she's pushing for more each time she goes into the gym. And that can go a long way in terms of body composition. And then make sure the diet is in check on the other end. And she's not crash dieting, but she's also not eating in a surplus for her. So, just a very slight deficit would probably be the best approach for her. So take the weight loss goal and move the slider to the slowest possible area. And yeah, do that for a while. It's going to take a little while to accumulate some muscle, but that's likely the best approach for her. And make sure that she's also eating enough protein, which if she's using carbon, she will have the proper macro ratios for building optimal muscle. So hopefully that helps. All right. So I kind of mentioned it a little bit, but in your experience, have you ever seen someone build muscle, whether it be minimal or more, while on a cut and eating enough protein? Absolutely. It happens quite often for people that aren't super experienced in the gym, that haven't been going to the gym for a long time. So, and even for myself, like if I take a while off from the gym for whatever reason, there's been a few circumstances in my life that I've taken some time off from the gym. When I come back, I can eat in a deficit and gain that muscle back. So if you are a person that built a certain amount of muscle and then you lost it, you can easily build some muscle back while being in a deficit. And like I mentioned, also the newbie to the gym, if you're new to weight training, or if you've been eating a lower protein diet in the past, like those types of scenarios are scenarios where you likely will still build some muscle while being in a deficit. But once you get like farther down the road, and I've been going to the gym for, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so, hitting it hard in the gym. And once you've been in the gym that long, it really is beneficial to have more distinct phases of, I'm looking to lose fat right now, I'm looking to build muscle right now, and then being okay with my body composition. So once you get more experience, then you got to focus on making sure you're in a surplus when you're trying to build muscle. But for somebody that's newer, absolutely, it's absolutely possible to build some muscle while being in a deficit and eating enough protein. Let's see. Okay, so if I cook 3 pounds of ground beef to make it easier to plan my meal for the week, if I put 200 grams of cooked ground beef, how much weight is it really? So the thing is of tracking things cooked versus raw is, when you track it cooked, there's a lot more variance in terms of accuracy, because every cooking method that you have is gonna make the food lose water at a different rate. And so the weights can vary drastically across cooking methods, and that can be hard to keep track of. And that's why, if you want to be as accurate as possible, it's probably best to weigh and track it raw. But that can also be a pain, because if you're cooking in bulk and then you're doing it, that can be a real pain to try to weigh it raw. So what I recommend is, if you cook it bulk, 3 pounds of it, what you can do is, so the weight before you cooked it, it was 3 pounds, then cook it all, then weigh it again, all of it. And let's say it's 2 pounds. It lost a pound in cooking. Then what you're going to want to do is figure out what percentage was lost throughout the cooking process. And then you'll take that percentage and just adjust your gram tracking amount for whatever method you're doing. So if you want to track it cooked, figure out how much weight was lost while cooked, then you know the ratio of cooked to uncooked, and then that can help you convert the tracking. But if you don't care, like if you're not trying to be super crazy about it, as long as you're consistent with the method that you're doing, that's what's most important. So like I don't even mess with uncooked weighing. I literally always just do cooked and then track it as uncooked. I'm consistent with that. That's what's most important. So I'm getting more protein than what I have tracked. But I'm fine with that because, it's not going to be a crazy amount, and I'm always consistent with the way I do it. So if I eat chicken, I'm always tracking the same chicken item in my database. And I'm doing it as cooked, even though the thing in the database is raw. I'm just fine with being a little bit over my protein. And since I'm consistent with the method that I'm doing, that doesn't matter anymore over the long run, because carbon is going to adjust based on how my body's responding each week through my check-ins. So it's going to not matter if I ate 210 grams of protein versus 200 what I tracked and what carbon thinks. So just be consistent with it. But if you want to be accurate, figure out the weight that's lost while you're cooking it, and then just adjust your portion sizes in your tracker to compensate for that. All right, so Eric has another question here, or Erie, sorry. Does exercise really help with hunger signaling? I've heard exercise can make you feel less hungry, which seems counterintuitive. Yeah, absolutely. It can play with your hunger hormones, so you can be less hungry. If I found that cardio can be like a good appetite suppressant for me. So everybody can be a little bit different. But I've found, the more exercise I'm doing, I do have different hunger levels. And if I'm, a lazy person on the couch, whatever, like skipping the gym, like my hunger is all out of whack and I'm more hungry and I want to eat more food. So I think, and it could just be some mental as well, like of you're focused in the gym and you're focused on this, and you may just have different mental aspect around that. But there is some evidence that it does alter your hunger signaling. So exercise does a lot of things. It's very beneficial. So we definitely want to make sure we're doing exercise regularly. Discuss compliance. Do I need 4 blue checks to be compliant? Compliance, to be like fully compliant in the app, you do need to hit all of your macros. But a lot of people find that they have good enough compliance with just doing something like making sure they hit their calories and protein, and then they let their carbs and fats go wherever they do. Since you're doing that, you're still staying within your calorie requirements for your goal. So your energy requirements are being met and you're eating the right amount of calories for your goal. And then protein, you're making sure you're getting enough protein, so it's not like you're risking muscle loss. And so a lot of people have a ton of success doing calories and protein. If you do calories and protein, however, I would make sure you're using macro calories in carbon. And what that'll do is that'll just standardize the calories, and it won't have to deal with any alterations in food labels. And so make sure you have macro calories enabled if you're going to do calories and protein. That's important. But I mean, for everybody, I really recommend macro calories just because it's a more standard approach to tracking your macros. But yeah, compliance is something that, and we also ask you, were you compliant? Because everybody has a different definition of what they want to consider compliant. Like if we just across the board said, well, you didn't hit all your macros, you're not compliant, people would be very angry. And it's not required in certain circumstances. Like it depends on how strict your goal is and how important being, right on the money is for you and your goal. And so we leave it more open-ended of allowing you to determine if you're compliant or not. But most importantly, calories. That's something you need to focus on first and foremost, making sure you're reaching the right amount of calories for your goal, whatever carbon determined your calorie requirements are. And then protein is also very important. So those are the two main ones that are super important. And then carbs and fats really aren't crazy important. They're important from a performance perspective. If you're doing a lot of exercise or doing a lot of endurance training, for example, you're going to want to have more carbs in your diet in proportion to the fat that you're consuming. So you do want to shift your carb and fat ratios towards that. But for most people, just calories and proteins fine, and letting carbs and fats fall wherever they do on the spectrum based on the foods that you're eating is plenty fine. So hopefully that helps. Thanks for all your hard work and help. You bet. Thank you for using carbon. If you are, I hope so. But thank you for tuning in as well. Let's see. Can we say we're compliant if we hit the macros 80% of the time and not 100% of days? So that's another thing as well, is like compliance is on the weekly scale. It's not necessarily on every single day. So like it's not like, oh, today I didn't eat enough, so I'm not compliant, or I ate too much today, so I'm non-compliant. It's on the weekly scale of when you check in. So your average macros is what's going to be most important. Your average calories and average protein, that's what you need to focus on. So you can have some days where you're under, some days where you're over, but as long as that baseline and the average is right on compliance with where your goal, then that's totally fine. And you can use the calorie planner for making sure that you are adjusting your macros based on how you're eating throughout the week, so you can make sure you're still staying on track with the average macro targets. Let's see. When you're on a cut, do you recommend immediately dropping to 1 to 2 pounds a week, or do you prefer the least amount possible? It all depends on your weight. So carbon goes based on an average of your current weight. And so it scales for anybody's size. So 1 to 2 pounds for me could be drastically different for 1 to 2 pounds for somebody that's lighter than me or heavier than me. So it just depends on what your current weight is. But for me personally, I like to take diets slow, and I'm fine with going longer, just because I get in the zone when I'm dieting, and I'm totally fine with, having the diet be dragged out a little bit longer, as long as I can keep calories higher, because it just doesn't feel like I'm dieting when I get in the zone and I stay busy with things. So I like to take it as slow as possible on carbon. So when I do a weight loss, I'll just bring it to the slowest possible setting, and then just live life and see when I'm feel like I'm lean enough, and then I switch my goals. So that's just the approach I take. There's some times where I have periods where I'm like, I want to lose more during this like shorter period. So maybe I'll do a mini cut and go a little bit faster. But if it's a diet where I need to lose more than like 5 pounds, I'll just take it slow and allow myself to have more calories and not feel like I'm dieting at all. Indeed, using carbon, I love it. Lost over 100 pounds through diet and exercise using this app and diet too. That is absolutely amazing. That is so great to hear. And yeah, it just goes to show, like, you put in the work and you put in the time, you can achieve amazing things. 100 pounds, that's crazy. That's awesome. So what's your goal right now? What are you looking to do? Are you looking to lose a little bit more? Are you looking to gain some more weight or reverse diet? What goal are you on right now, Erie? All right. How would you track butter? I'm using to cook my meal prep for the week, or just not worry about it. It depends on how much it is. If it's like cooking spray that you use for cooking, I don't even worry about that. It's such a small amount, and I don't ever track it, so I'm consistent with not tracking it. So the more consistent you are with your meals, then that's gonna, like, it's not gonna really matter anymore. But if it's a lot of butter, I would definitely track it. So it's kind of a personal judgment thing. Like, how much butter is it? Do you feel like it's contributing a significant amount of calories? Um, if it's something you're super consistent with, not a huge deal. Just be consistent with how much you use and how often you use it throughout the week, and then it's not going to matter anymore. But yeah, just depends on how much it is. If it's cooking spray, I would never really worry about it unless you're like just taking the can for like 20 seconds on the pan and you got visible like butter drips everywhere. But if it's just normal cooking, not a super big deal. All right. um, what to eat after a hard training session when you're more tired and less hungry? So you don't instantly have to eat after a training session. It really depends on how how soon before your training session you ate, and like the spacing of the meal before. So like if you eat right before you go to the gym, you can go without eating for a little while after training without having to worry about any, any kind of missing your anabolic window or anything like that. Like, the anabolic window was made to seem like it's very small, short period of time. You got to chug your protein shake like instantly as you're walking out of the gym. Like, it's not that dire of a scenario. Like, you have it's like a huge barn door. You have this big window to where you are going to be able to maximize things, and it just depends on what you eat before you work out. So like, as long as you're having food 1 to 2 hours before your workout, or 1 to 2 hours after your workout, you're completely fine with any kind of maximization of benefits from weight training and pre and post workout nutrition. So don't stress about it too much. If you're not super hungry after your workout, give it a little bit of time, or do just a protein shake or something within 1 to 2 hours after. And then when you get hungry for a meal, then you can eat a meal later. But don't stress about being on it like instantly with your post workout meal. All right. I've been inconsistent and non-compliant in the past. Is it best to turn off coach trend weight? I lost the target amount of weight for the week while compliant, and the coach still lower my calories. So trend weight is a very useful feature, but people tend to struggle sometimes with it because they see that they had a single week where they thought they reached whatever they needed to, and the coach made an adjustment. Trend weight is really making sure your trend is on track with what you need to be, and not necessarily just like week to week progress. So you need to kind of detach a little bit from the week to week adjustments with the coach, just because trend weight is a very sophisticated algorithm that makes sure you are progressing at the right rate on your trend. And so it can be hard, like I said, but you had 1 week where you lost the target amount of weight, but if you take a step back and look at, okay, how have I been trending on this goal? The coach would do the right thing in that scenario. So the coach is not making, quick decisions based on a single week of data. It's looking at all of the data since you've started your goal and started carbon, and then making the appropriate recommendation from there. So I recommend TrendWeight. I use TrendWeight. I've been using it since we released it as experimental for users, and I found it to be super beneficial. But I did notice I have to kind of detach a little bit from the psychology around my week-to-week progress and just let the coach take over. And I found to be more successful using TrendWeight than not. But if you don't like it, you can still turn it off and use the default way of doing it before we introduced the experimental TrendWeight. And TrendWeight is still experimental, so we are continually looking to make improvements to it. So if you guys have scenarios where you don't think it did the right thing for you and you're on TrendWeight, do reach out to our customer support and give them all the details and let them know about those scenarios, because that'll help us fine tune things to make sure it works best for everybody, and not just 95% of scenarios. We want to make sure that we're covering all the bases. So do reach out to our customer support if you do have feedback on the experimental TrendWeight feature. Thanks for the question. Okay, so Yuri, I'm still on fat loss. I have 22 more pounds to lose to reach my weight loss goal. Hoping to be around 14% body fat at the end, but we'll have to reevaluate when the time comes. Yep, that's great. Yeah, sounds like you're just chugging along. Things are going great. Appreciate you being a carbon user and happy to see all the success you've had with it. All right, let's see. Okay. Let's see. I checked in last week with my weight, which was higher due to my cycle. This week when I checked in, I was down 2 pounds, but not sure if that was an accurate loss due to my cycle. The app increased my calories due to more weight loss than I selected. Thoughts on that? So I'm not sure. Did you mark when you checked in that you feel like your weight could be affected by your period? There's a question that asks that, and what it does is if you say that there is a possibility that your weight could be affected by your period, the coach will take that into consideration. And if it's like a large swing in your weight and you mark that, like it's gonna really take that into consideration and think, okay, this is likely due to the period and just normal water fluctuations around the cycle. And so it wouldn't make an adjustment, but I don't know if you marked that or not. And yeah, the thing is you mark it if you feel like your weight has been affected, not like if you're on your period currently, or if you're about to get your period, or like, do you feel like your weight is affected by your menstrual cycle right now? If yes or no, and that's an important thing to do when you're checking in. But overall, I think if you end up losing, if you end up not losing enough, in your check-ins that are coming up, on average, the coach will bring you back down a little bit. So in worst case scenario, if it overcorrected a little bit, you have a few more calories to have fun with for a week or so. But most of the time it's doing the right thing in terms of that, but it can get hard when you have some weird weight fluctuations around your cycle, but we try to do the best we can with that. Thanks for the question. All right. Clint on YouTube, if I see I'm short 500 to 1,000 calories before check-in, is it a bad practice to eat that extra to try to catch up? I find myself being short on calories each day and have to catch up at the check-in. that is completely fine to catch up at the end. It's not going to make any difference on your progress. One thing that I could see potentially happening is if you are eating under a lot, during the week, and then right before you check in, you eat all those calories up, there is a chance that your weight is going to be even more artificially higher when you're checking in. But if you're consistently doing that every single check-in, then that shouldn't matter too much. Like overall, what's most important is your average macro targets throughout the week. So take a step back, look at when you're checking in. Are you hitting your average macro targets when you go to check in? Yes. If so, then it's not a big deal. And you can have fun for the day before you check in to try to catch up with all those calories. But you can also try to just be a little bit more conscious throughout the week, and make sure you're including some higher calorie dense foods in your diet, just so you aren't always behind. Even something as simple as cooking or adding olive oil to a tablespoon or two of olive oil to a meal every single day can get you to where you need to be in terms of calories each day. So you don't have to, eat foods that are super filling to reach those calorie targets. You can do more calorie dense foods to stay on track throughout the week. But overall, don't worry about it, Clint. It's fine as long as your average macros are on track. All right. Want to try Carbon Diet Coach, but don't know what goal to choose. Also have an eating disorder. What do you suggest? I can't really give you guidance around your eating disorder, but in terms of what goal to choose, if you're somebody that is always under eating, you likely have a suppressed metabolism and would benefit greatly from reverse dieting and getting out of that diet mindset. Some people get so ingrained in dieting, losing weight, that taking a reverse diet can help break that cycle of always wanting to diet. And so if your metabolism is likely suppressed, you probably want to go with reverse diet for a while, and then kind of reassess as you get consistent with tracking, with carbon and checking in. Then you'll see kind of where things are at, and then you can adjust from there. And if you need help figuring out what goal to choose, then you can always reach out to our customer support. Super helpful. They can't give guidance around the eating disorder stuff. You should speak with a specialist around that, but they can definitely point you in the right direction with carbon and utilizing it based on where your body's at right now. Thank you for the question. Clint, thanks for the chat. I keep seeing recommendations to choose high quality sources of protein. Are deli slices of turkey, ham, or beef considered processed? If it's lunch meat, yeah, it is. And I would probably try to avoid or just minimize those types of things in your diet. But deli meat isn't super calorie dense, so that's not going to be something that helps you easily hit your calories and macros for the day. Beef, just include some more foods, go eat some pizza or something, or ice cream. Those are calorie dense foods that people love and can easily give you some more calories for the day. I think as long as you're getting 80 to 90% of your calories from whole nutrient dense foods, you're completely fine with having 10 to 20% of your calories from more discretionary, junk, quote unquote, junk foods, without any negative impact on your health. You need to practice moderation for sure, but don't super try to avoid foods that most people consider junk. But including a little bit of those foods that you really, really enjoy in your diet can go a long ways in terms of compliance and allowing you to stick to a diet long term. And that's what's going to be most important for like reaching your long-term goals, is finding a diet approach that is sustainable, that doesn't feel like it's a super chore. Like there's no good or bad foods. Like when you stop like looking at foods as good or bad, it really opens up your perspective and allows you to stick to your diet so much more easily, and it doesn't have a negative effect on your health as long as you're practicing moderation. Some people say I eat too many chocolate bar. Yeah, just moderation, making sure you like I love the 80-20 rule, because it's like a very nice balance of food, healthy food to junk food ratio. And speaking of junk food, I lost 20 pounds just by eating Ahmad's Pizza every Saturday as my cheat meal. Like you can include foods like that for sure in your diet. And even like the cheat meal mindset can be negative for some people, because then it kind of points out like, oh, this is a bad food and I'm doing a bad thing, I'm cheating. We put a negative connotation around cheating, and so labeling it as a cheat meal is probably not the best thing to do, but if it allows you to stick to your plan long term, it's going to be a success, and it sounds like it's been very successful for you. So all right. Let's see. How does carbon deal with plateaus? So it depends on when carbon will make the proper adjustment when you have plateaued. Once it senses that your average or trend isn't progressing at the rate that you have set, then it's going to make an adjustment in your macros to get you progressing at the rate that you have set. So it deals with plateaus by adjusting your calories and macros to what your body is telling us that you need to eat to progress. So if we know how much you're eating and we know how your weight is changing, we can impact how much your weight is changing based on adjusting how much you're eating. And so we figure out what do you need to eat to actually see the progress that you're getting based on check-ins. And so carbon will always adjust and get you out of a plateau. Now, getting out of a plateau may mean you eating fewer calories than you want to eat. And that's just a sign that you probably shouldn't be dieting anymore. If it's going to be hard to stick to break through that plateau, for example, you may need to switch gears and reverse diet for a while and work on building your metabolism so that it is easier for you to diet again in the future and allow you to lose weight on higher calories if your metabolism's in a healthy place. So how does carbon break through plateaus? It adjusts your macros. All right, we got a few more minutes here. Are there any future plans to add include tomorrow when it comes to compliance toggle? There's an include today, but would be nice to see what tomorrow's planned macros look like. So the include today toggle when you're looking at compliance is there because some people, when you check in, typically you weigh yourself and check in the morning. When you check in, that's actually day one of your next check-in period. And so you don't want to include today. If you, for example, tracked your breakfast, and then if you tracked your breakfast and then did include today and checked in today, that's going to throw off your averages. So that include today has to be there because your check-in day is day one of your following week. So you're going to get new macros once you check in, and then that's going to be there. So that's why that toggle's there. Include tomorrow would be kind of hard to do just because we need to know what your weight is when you check in on check-in day. And so that's super important. So we can't tell you what your macros are going to be until we have all the data that we need to determine what adjustments need to be made. So it would be I think it would be impossible to be able to allow you to see in the future of what your macros are going to be like. There could be scenarios where like we could maybe estimate and give you an idea of, hey, you're on track to get an adjustment or something, just so it's not a surprise when you check in. But that's all stuff we can chat about and think about more. But yeah, hopefully that clears up some of the info around the include today toggle when your compliance screen. All right. Let's see. All right. I got time for one more question. So let's see. We'll go with a fiber one. So how important is fiber when dieting? This is a good question, because fiber is something that you want to keep pretty consistent. So it is important to make sure you're eating enough fiber, and then also being consistent with the amount of fiber that you're consuming on a daily basis from a GI perspective. So make sure you're consuming a healthy amount based on your body. And a good way to figure out how much fiber is recommended for you is a super easy figure to go by is take your total calories and multiply it by for every 1,000 calories that you consume, you want to get about 15 grams of fiber. So if you're consuming 2,000 calories a day, a good fiber goal to shoot for is 30 grams of fiber. And that's just an easy figure to go with, just to get a good fiber number. And like I mentioned, it's important to consume it consistently, just so that you're not getting backed up on some days, and just so you're more regular. The more regular you are, the more consistent your weigh-ins are going to be every single day when you're weighing yourself. Also, fiber can really help with satiety. So when you're dieting, calories are likely a little bit lower. Eating a higher fiber diet is going to help with your hunger and make you not as hungry as it would if you were eating simple carbs like sugar, for example, for your carbs. So you want to make sure you're getting adequate fiber from a satiety perspective, as well as from a just staying regular while dieting perspective. Overall, it's important for health. So appreciate the question, and I appreciate everybody tuning in today. Next week's Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. If you need any help with using Carbon, we have an amazing customer support team that you can reach at support@joincarbon.com. And if you haven't already tried Carbon, do give us a try. It's super affordable compared to if you were to hire a macro coach on your own. So it's only $9.99 a month to use Carbon. You can cancel anytime. You also get a discount if you want to commit to 6 months or a year. We'll give you a slight discount in terms of your subscription price. So do give Carbon a try if you haven't. If you are enjoying Carbon, something that really helps us is reviews on the app stores. So if you are a Carbon user and you enjoy the app, do leave us a good review on the app stores. We appreciate it. Thank you all for joining in, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. We'll see ya.